The late October air in Greenwich, Connecticut, carried the scent of wood smoke and old money. But inside the Davenport mansion, a new sharp perfume signaled a cold change in the weather. Eleanor Vance stood in the grand, mahogany-paneled library, polishing a silver teapot that had been in the family for 3 generations. She knew that new things often looked shinier than they were, and Isabella Hayes, Mr. Davenport's new fiancée, shined with a blinding, desperate brightness. From the adjoining sunroom, Eleanor could hear Isabella's light, musical laughter as she hosted Arthur for tea, criticizing the placement of furniture Eleanor hadn't changed in 20 years. "You're so lucky to have her, darling," Isabella said, her voice carrying clearly. "She keeps this house so clean. It's wonderful. Her people are just so reliable." Arthur Davenport murmured his agreement, completely missing the subtle, racist undertone. Eleanor's hands, steady and worn, didn't pause in their work. A moment later, 8-year-old Clara Davenport ran into the library, bypassing the sunroom entirely, her face pinched in distress. "Nellie, I got a splinter." She held out her small hand, running straight past Isabella. Eleanor set the teapot down and guided Clara to a chair, her movements economical and calm. "Let's see, sweetheart." She gently inspected the finger, removing the splinter with a steady, practiced hand that seemed almost surgical, a hint of a past unknown to this house. As Eleanor applied a small bandage, Clara whispered, "I wish you were marrying Dad." Later that evening, after she'd retired to her own small, tidy sitting room to the comforting sounds of an old Ella Fitzgerald record, Eleanor went to check on the children. She found 6-year-old Leo in his room, struggling with a book. She sat with him, patiently sounding out the words. She didn't hear Isabella approach until she spoke from the doorway. "Eleanor, you mustn't spoil them." Eleanor looked up. Isabella was leaning against the frame, dressed in silk, her smile tight. "They need to toughen up." Her eyes were cold, assessing the deep maternal bond she clearly needed to break. As Eleanor turned off the lights in the main hall hours later, she saw Isabella standing alone in the library, staring at a portrait of Arthur's late wife, her expression unreadable and chillingly possessive. That chilling, possessive stare from Isabella. "It feels like a storm is brewing over this house." What is your real first impression of the new fiancé? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you are already rooting for Eleanor's quiet strength, please show your support by subscribing to Black Brilliance and turning on the notification bell. We are dedicated to sharing powerful stories of overlooked brilliance just like this, and your support makes it all possible. Trust us, you do not want to miss what happens in the garden. Let's continue. The house was tomb silent at 2:17 a.m. until a sound, faint and desperate, scraped its way through the cold night air and into Eleanor's room. Eleanor sat bolt upright in her bed. She had been restless, unable to shake the image of Isabella's cold, assessing stare from earlier that evening. She knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that something was wrong. She listened. The old house groaned, but this was different. A muffled thump, then a whimper. It didn't belong. Grabbing her thick robe and a heavy flashlight from her nightstand, she slipped out of her room. She moved silently down the servants' stairs, bypassing the internal alarm panel near the kitchen. She'd noticed Isabella often forgot to set it. The sound led her to the back door, toward the manicured rose garden, Isabella's recent, prideful project. The air was cold and damp. The sound was stronger here, seeming to come from the ground itself. Her beam cut through the darkness, landing on a patch of freshly turned, disturbed earth near the oldest oak tree. Her blood ran cold. She saw a garden spade lying nearby, left out carelessly. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she pushed down the panic. She grabbed the spade and began to dig, the metal slicing into the soft, displaced soil. She dug frantically, the smell of damp earth filling her lungs. Thud. The shovel hit something solid. Wood. "No," she whispered, dropping to her knees, breaking her nails as she clawed the wet dirt away with her bare hands. It was a wooden storage chest, an old one from the pool house. She fumbled with the latch, her fingers stiff, before ripping the lid open. Inside, Leo lay pale and still, his lips blue, his small body covered in dirt. He was unmoving. For one agonizing second, Eleanor froze, the horror of the sight paralyzing her. The 62-year-old housekeeper vanishes. Captain Vance, her army nurse persona, takes over. Her voice is steel. Airway. Check for breathing. She tilts his head, sees he's obstructed, clears his mouth, and begins rescue breaths, her actions precise and automatic. You will not die tonight, Leo. Breathe. The fluorescent lights of the hospital waiting room hummed, a stark, sterile contrast to the rich earth still caked beneath Eleanor's fingernails. She sat slumped in a plastic chair, her robe pulled tight, her mind a numb fog. When Arthur Davenport finally arrived, his face was a mask of sheer panic. Eleanor. My God, Leo. He rushed to her, grabbing her hands, his eyes searching hers for answers. They said he's stable. They said you saved him. Eleanor could only nod, exhausted. I found him, sir. I heard him in the garden. Just then the ER doctor approached Arthur. Whoever did that initial CPR saved his life. Another 2 minutes and Arthur's gratitude was cut short as Isabella Hayes burst through the doors, a perfect performance of theatrical hysteria. Arthur. Oh, my baby. Where is he? She collapsed into Arthur's arms, sobbing, before her eyes landed on Eleanor. Her expression shifted instantly. Eleanor, she said, her voice sharp with fear. But why were you outside? In the dark? Why didn't you call us? Arthur looked confused, but the seed of doubt was planted. Detective Miller arrived moments later, his face grim. While Arthur was speaking with the doctor, Isabella pulled Miller aside. Eleanor was too far away to hear, but she could see the performance. The trembling hand, the confidential whispers. I hate to say this, Detective, Isabella's voice trembled, but Eleanor, she has been obsessed with Leo. She wanders the grounds at night. I'm scared of her. You know how those people can get so emotional. Miller's gaze hardened as he looked over at Eleanor. His professionalism was now tainted by a subtle, creeping prejudice. Just as he started walking toward Eleanor, his phone rang. He listened, his eyes narrowing further. He hung up and looked at Eleanor, his demeanor now cold. Ma'am, my officers just searched your room. They found a bottle of the same sedative used on Leo tucked under your mattress. Miller, his demeanor now cold, arrests Eleanor. As he leads her out, Clara, who just arrived with Arthur, sees them. She screams, No. Don't take Nellie. Daddy stopped them. She saved Leo. Can you believe the injustice? Eleanor saved that boy's life, and now she's the one in handcuffs because of Isabella's vicious, calculated lies. If you are still watching this video and feel the power of this story, please comment with the number 8 below to let me know you are standing with Eleanor right now. And if you haven't subscribed, I truly encourage you to join Black Brilliance and turn on the bell so you don't miss a moment of this. Your support helps us continue to create powerful content that informs and inspires. You are not going to believe what Captain Vance does next. Now, let's continue. Eleanor Vance sat in the Stark interrogation room, the accusation of attempted murder hanging heavy in the air, but Detective Miller was about to realize he wasn't interviewing a housekeeper. Miller slid the photos of the planted sedative bottle across the table. We found this under your mattress, Mrs. Vance. Right next to your records. It's the same type used on Leo. He leaned back, confident. That's advanced CPR you performed. Where does a housekeeper learn that? Eleanor met his gaze, her posture shifting, the weariness replaced by a quiet, steely authority. The same place I learned to handle interrogation, Detective. Captain Vance, United States Army Nurse Corps, retired. You can check my service record. Miller stared, stunned. This revelation shattered his unstable Maid narrative. He ran her name. Her service record was immaculate. The racial and class bias that had clouded his judgment began to clear, replaced by professional doubt. When Arthur arrived to post bail, he couldn't look Eleanor in the eye, his face a mask of shame and conflict, Clara's screams still ringing in his ears. He suspended Eleanor with pay. It's just procedure, he mumbled. Banned from the house, Eleanor knew she was being watched, but she also knew Isabella had made a mistake. That night, she snuck back onto the sprawling estate grounds, avoiding the main paths. Her training had taught her to analyze the scene. She wouldn't carry a planted bottle and the real one, Eleanor murmured to herself, scanning the edge of the rose garden. She ditched it near the scene. Her fingers, brushing the loose soil near the bushes, hit something hard. It was the other empty sedative bottle, hastily buried. She holds the bottle to the moonlight. It's the same prescription, but there's a faint beige smudge on the cap, Isabella's expensive foundation. Got you, she whispers. The pill bottle proved Isabella had the means. Now Eleanor needed to prove the motive. She sat in the back corner of the Stamford Public Library, a headscarf and large glasses obscuring her features. She remembered Isabella's chilling, possessive stare at the late Mrs. Davenport's portrait. This wasn't a crime of passion or jealousy. It was a cold, calculated replacement. Back at the mansion, Arthur found his daughter Clara in her room, refusing to eat. "Sweetheart, please," he begged. Clara turned her back on him. "You let Nellie go." "You believe her," she whispered, her voice full of a betrayal that cut Arthur deeper than any accusation. His guilt was a heavy weight in his chest. At the library terminal, Eleanor typed Isabella Hayes into the search bar. Nothing. Just 18 months of society photos, charity galas, and announcements of her engagement to Arthur. It was as if she had simply appeared from nowhere. This was a dead end. Eleanor paused, her military intelligence training kicking in. If the name was new, the face wasn't. She saved a gala photo to the desktop and ran a reverse image search. The system churned, then flagged a match, an archived news story from a small South American paper, dated 3 years prior. Her blood ran cold as she read the translation. The woman's name was Elena Cortez. She was wanted for befriending and marrying wealthy widowers. In every case, the existing heirs suffered tragic accidents, leaving Elena the sole benefactor. Eleanor read the horrifying final detail of the last case. A 7-year-old boy had survived an initial drowning, only to die 2 days later in the hospital from a sudden fatal potassium overdose. Eleanor stares at the screen in terror. Leo is in the hospital. He's a loose end. She's not running, Eleanor realizes. She's going to finish the job. The antiseptic smell of the hospital hit Eleanor as she ran through the doors, but she knew the real poison was already on the pediatric floor. She flashed her old but valid nurse ID at the pediatric ward desk, barking Dr. Stevens, code blue consult, a bluff that got her past security without a second glance. She knew from the article, potassium overdose, that Isabella would use a syringe. She found Leo's private room. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, in the dim glow of the monitors, Isabella stood over the bed, her back to the door, tapping a small syringe to clear the air bubbles. "Get away from him." Eleanor's voice was iron. Isabella turned, not shocked, but annoyed. "You just couldn't stay away, old woman," she hissed, her mask of sanity gone. She moved the syringe toward Leo's foreline. Eleanor lunged, grabbing Isabella's wrist. They struggled. Isabella was younger, but Eleanor was trained. With a sharp twist, Eleanor slammed Isabella's hand against the steel bed rail, breaking her grip. The syringe clattered to the floor. The door burst open. Arthur and Detective Miller, alerted by Eleanor's frantic call from the taxi, rushed in. "What is going on?" Arthur yelled. In the sudden, chaotic silence, a small, terrified voice whispered, "The box." Everyone froze. Leo was awake, his eyes wide, pointing a trembling finger straight at Isabella. She put me in the box." Silence. Isabella's face drained of color. Detective Miller's eyes locked onto the syringe on the floor, then back to the terrified boy, then to the exposed Elena Cortez. "It's over, Elena," Miller said, pulling out his handcuffs. As Isabella was cuffed, silent and defeated, Arthur just stared at Eleanor, the full weight of his prejudice and blindness crashing down on him. Clara, who had come with her father, ran past him and threw her arms around Eleanor's waist. In the end, it wasn't the billionaire's wealth or the fiancée's calculated beauty that held true power. It was the quiet dignity and hidden brilliance of the woman everyone chose to overlook. This story reminds us that when we judge others by the color of their skin or the job they hold, we risk becoming blind to the hero standing right in front of us. If Eleanor's strength and integrity touched your heart, Please share your thoughts on her story in the comments below. We invite you to subscribe to Black Brilliance so you never miss a story that champions the extraordinary power hidden in everyday kindness.